We're going to kick off our conversation this evening. Do you want me closer? Okay. Fantastic, great. Happy Wednesday evening. My name is Betsy Paradise.
A little closer.
A little closer
to your mouth.
Okay. Betsy Paradise. I'm the HR chair of the House of Prayer LMT. And I am part of the staffing committee. Paul?
And I'm Paul Olson, Vice President, and also as part of that here at Woodlake, the kind of HR committee for the shared ministry team.
And I think we are going to, So we are going to start our conversation. Dan, do you want to go to the next slide, please, for us? I think one of the major questions that we heard as we came together as a group was, what are we doing with our pastoral team? Do we need to do a call committee? What are those things that are important from a staffing perspective?
Usually these.
I think there's a lot of chatter in the room, so if we could, we're going to take a moment. So we are having some really hard conversations when it comes to what are some of those next steps, particularly with our pastoral team. I'm going to invite our pastoral team to come up and have a few words with you as we go through this. But we have had an opportunity to talk with somebody from the Synod, and through that conversation, they have encouraged us to do a call for our pastoral team. And that might sound like a really daunting task, but that call does not need to be an external call. We are more than welcome to consider all of our current pastoral team for our pastoral positions, which may or may not be the case, like that may be where we land. And one of the phrases that the Synod really kind of utilized is, what was it?
Clarity of call.
The clarity of call. So I think that's what I'm going to hand it over to our pastoral team to kind of talk about. What does the clarity of call mean for each of them?
Good evening, everyone. Should I go up on the stage? Up on the stage. All right, I can go up there. Da-da-da-dun. All right. Oh, wow, right in my eye. They did that on purpose. They did that on purpose. Good evening, everyone. Good to see you all here. It's really fun every Wednesday to see this place full and to be together as our two churches. As our two churches are kind of in this process of coming together. So a couple of things about this clarity of call and this thing that Betsy's bringing up. You know, I have been kind of joking with Mary a little bit, and a couple times I've told her, I was like, Mary, I think I may have ministried myself out of a job here. And there are varying levels of truth to that. The truth is, like, we don't know exactly what if this new entity is going to be one pastor call or a two pastor call. And so there's an element of mystery. We don't know yet. But, you know, I think how I've been looking at this is just to take this idea of a new call and to take this time to evaluate for myself and my family, and I know my colleagues will do that as well, of is this something that I will feel called to in the future? And that's the question I'll be asking myself. And then the second part of that is, do you all feel called for me or someone else or whatever that looks like? So there's a lot of things kind of being juggled and up in the air, but you know, one of the things we wanted to kind of reassure you all is like we recognize this process is hard, and all of us pastors are asking ourselves questions of what that will look like as well. But we're, at least for me, I'm really focused on, I believe that God has called our churches together, and whatever that means, I believe that God will be with me here or there or somewhere else. And you know, we know we all love you guys, and we're grateful for the love we've gotten from you. So I'm going to hand it off to one of my colleagues here, and I'll say, Pastor Eric, you want to?
I'll just echo everything Pastor Neil just said. But I'll tell you this, in 16 years of ordained ministry, I've served a bunch of different churches. And each time I've left one of the previous churches, it has been different. And sometimes I have been ready to go for the next thing that God was calling me to be a part of. And sometimes I was not ready to let go of where I had been. But each time I got to the new place, what I recognized for as a pastor was God called me to that next place for a purpose. But also each of those previous places had pastoral leadership that carried them to exactly where they needed to go next as well. And so as pastors, I think we are preconditioned to think a little more globally about that sort of piece. But I think what I would just say is trust that the Holy Spirit is in this process. As pastors, we love you. We will continue to care for you. We will continue to seek the best for this process. And when the time comes that a decision has to be made, we're also going to trust that the Holy Spirit is in that moment. And that you as a joint entity will make the right choice to move this joint entity forward. And there are other churches that may or may not benefit from those that don't make this entity move forward.
Well, one, it is great to see each and every one here tonight. It's a full house, and doesn't that feel good? There is some space up here if you don't have a table. If you want to, I know that that's a front row seat, but please join us. When we started this process of unification, we all recognized that there would be change. And change is hard within churches. But our goal as pastors is to breathe new life into this place. And sometimes that means through death. And as we approach Easter and the Lenten journey, we are living this story of what it means to die and to rise again. And that happens with jobs, that happens with life. Our beloved that have gone on have been risen again. It happens in the springtime. We know that it's going to be a beautiful weekend. So we take solace that, yes, this is a difficult time in the life of the church. But also, yes, it's a beautiful time because what are we doing is we're hoping to enable new life to breathe into the community so that we can reach out to new people, so that instead of having one Lenten seating, we can have 2 Lenten seatings. We could double the capacity, or maybe 3. That's the goal. The goal is never about us as individuals. It's all about the ministry that's happening here in Richfield. And that's what we're excited about. That's why we're open to the difficult conversations of staffing that will come. But if it's all about God, then it's all about God.
I will largely repeat what my colleagues have said and stand out of the sun so I can think. And otherwise, I will just give a shout and say, if you are invited to be on that call committee, give it some actual thought. When I was in college, I was invited to be on a call committee pretty unexpectedly in my home congregation. And it was so much fun. And I am admittedly a nerd, right? Y'all know this about me, and if you don't yet, you're learning. But it's not just for nerds, but if you are a nerd, that's also not shameful. So when that invitation comes, as it will to some of you, to be on that call committee, whether it's for the internal call process or anything beyond that, give it actual thought. Those invitations are given intentionally, and if you are invited, it will mean that you are wanted in that work. You have something to offer that work. And so as this continues, as the staffing portion of this unification process continues, know that the invitations to be a part of it are genuine. They are for you. And everything that you bring to these literal tables, you bring to the table that we gather around on Sundays, and you bring to this community, both these churches and the surrounding community. So if you are invited to be on that call committee, give it real thought. It's not a throwaway invitation, and it might just be a lot of fun.
Thank you to our pastoral team. I appreciate their words, and I will keep them in my thoughts and prayers as we go through this process, because this is going to be challenging not only for us, but for those experiencing change as well. One of the things that we wanted to just ground ourselves in is, what are those missional pillars? What are we driving for with this unification? So those are vibrant worship, community collaboration, and a place to grow. And why is that important in our staffing conversation? Because as we make decisions about these pillars, it will then help us make decisions about what positions we need to support that work. Do you want to move to the next one for us? And then do you want to take this one, Paul?
Yeah, I'll take this one. And one thing to note is, we don't have all the suggestions. We've been talking, and the pastoral staff has been instrumental, as well as talking to the synod about staffing. And as we noted, the pastoral staff is kind of the core role that we wanted to really focus on first, and then the rest of the church builds together. And as we see by all these, and I'll go through all of them in a second, it really is all the presentations that we've had to date, as well as children, youth, and family, and all these other groups that are going to determine the staffing. So as we note, do we own the building? And let's just presume yes. Well, if you own the building, you have your staff, you have your custodial staff, you have your administrative staff. How do you maintain, clean, and manage the building? But if we didn't own the building, a leasing company would manage all that stuff, so you're going to have less staff. So those are decisions that are going to be made, and it doesn't have to be this year, it could be next year, it could be down the road, but those are all the things that factor into it. The second item, how often and where we have vibrant worship. We talked about vibrant worship last week. We talked about the music, we talked about the style, and those are going to dictate what type of people, how many pastors, what kind of a pastor, what kind of music or worship leader is going to be needed. So those are just decisions and conversation that we're working through, and then also presenting here for you to put input in as well. What funds are there? Okay, that's the finances. So ultimately, even though it's a combination of two existing entities, that is going to come together, and with all the other pieces, and finance is a whole other conversation that'll be presented, but that is part of what will dictate how staffing, what's left over for the staff. And then also and to me this is part of a pillar, but it's multiple pillars within that pillar. Our community goals, our child, youth, and family goals, and those staffing positions that would be needed, and staff support for those positions. Anything else? Should we go to the next one?
So, we're not going to go through the details. On your table, you have these presentations, and part of that is so that you could look at the numbers. But what's really important in the numbers is, how much does it cost to employ people? And that is a significant portion of where the church spends their finance. So when we talk about supporting 4 pastors, that's a lot of money. And is that what we need as a congregation, right? Probably not. Does it feel sad to say that? Absolutely. But I think that we need to balance what are our needs as a congregation, and what does that staffing look like. So what we're going to ask for you to do this evening, and the conversations to have at your table on your pink slips, is really help us think about what are you looking for as we think about these job descriptions, the people that we might be hiring into these roles. And then when you think about those 3 missional pillars, and we'll put those back up on the screen for you, what aren't we thinking of? Did we Are we missing a position? Are we missing a role that you have seen in other churches? I've never staffed a church before. I'm not sure if you have either, but if you've seen something, we'd be really interested in hearing about it. And then what do you want to know? What do you want the shared ministry team to know about tonight's topic that we haven't been thinking about, or that you have on your mind that we maybe need to be aware of? So we are running probably a little bit longer in our conversation this evening, so we appreciate your patience. But we're going to give you about 10 minutes to have that conversation, and then we'll do the report out like we did last time. Thank you.
Anybody want to share with anything?
Okay, part of what we don't have is how much time the pastors are spending now and what they're doing with dealing with the people. I work Thursday afternoons, and I see our pastors busy on Thursday afternoons. So I know they're busy during the week, and I know they've got stuff that they're doing as well as preparing for services and all this other sort of stuff. So I don't think we have a good handle on exactly how much work we have them doing.
Sure, no, that's a good question. The question is, how much work are our pastors doing, overburdened? And I don't know, Eric, if you want to share in that. Otherwise, I could pick on Pastor Neil right here. Okay, that's better.
Yeah, to the question of, how many hours is a pastor spending in a week and what are we doing? I would say for each of us, I'm sure it varies from week to week. It's hard. 40 hours, 40 hours, 40 hours, 20 hours officially, probably over that. But I think part of the question from a staffing perspective is, are those things that require a pastor, or are those things that potentially could be handled by someone else? And so as we think about sort of staffing models, thinking about, are there other ways we can handle some of those tasks?
Right. Any other questions now? Start over here.
Well, in talking about the characteristics of a pastor or a pastoral staff, we want preaching from the gospel, good preaching and teaching, and communicative, and a shepherd, and more grace than law. For worship and music, someone that can play the pipe organ, lead the choirs, plan services with the pastors, but also put a little pizzazz into the services sometimes, a little bit extra. With the children and youth, we think we need a dedicated youth person, and then probably someone else that can work through the Sunday school and some other family activities. And community collaboration, we need an outreach coordinator. And with no financial worries, we'd like a parish nurse, a volunteer coordinator, a kitchen coordinator, and a counselor.
All right. Well, that's wonderful. I know there's one back there, the middle table. Yeah, I think that can be left out there. Put the wish list together, and then we just have to sort it through based on what finances are available.
Maybe the previous person said this, but I'm trying to figure out what a community collaboration staff is.
No, I think that's a good question. I don't know, if Pastor Neil, if you want to talk. A lot of this has to do with our pillars, but maybe you can share, especially as.
So community collaboration, one of the pillars of our our mission statement, and those pillars being things that we want to build our congregation to become, is a church that is active and involved in the community and has relationships with the community that go both ways. So it's not just us, throwing the gospel at them, but we have real meaningful relationship with our neighbors and partners, with our neighbors around us. And for us, having someone, or it doesn't necessarily have to be a staff person, it could be a volunteer role, but having an active and intentional presence, trying to build those relationships with, be it the middle school, the Boys and Girls Club, or the who has some other examples? I don't know. There's lots of organizations, and just really knowing our neighbors. So that takes intentionality, and that takes a lot of thoughtfulness to make that happen. So I think that's kind of what we're getting at there, and yeah, so that could look like a lot of things. We're still developing that.
All right. Anybody else out here? Should we see, are there any comments on our online group? They had no comments. Well, we're still looking. All right. Deb's going to go.
Hello. One of the thoughts that I was pushing for is because I see the pastoral staff here getting tired. I see a lot of funerals. When one of them goes on sabbatical, a whole lot is left. And we're going to be talking about maybe having 2 services again with the contemporary service. I think we need more. And one of my, I know, extremely radical, and all the finance-oriented people here are going to flip out when I say it, so I'm ready. Everyone get ready. Let's tap into that Heritage Fund. Let's staff all the pastors for 2 years and get through all the work that needs to be done and all the committees that need shepherding through all of this, and then make the decision in 2 years.
Oh, that's a good point.
Because at that point, we will know what our staffing needs are going to be once we're combined. Right now, we don't know that. We don't know who's going to leave and go find a more stable church. We don't know what people are going to be excited about what's going on here and come here. We don't know what's going to happen. And holding the staff that we have to get through this difficult merger time just seems like a real bonus to us. And what are we going to do with that money? Are we going to be like our saviors who's giving away $1 million after the church ends up closing? Or are we going to use that money to support our church and support our outreach and keep our church vibrant and strong? And I'm not talking about the $1 million. I'm just talking about a portion of it to pay for staffing for a couple years so that we can actually do some data studies on how much time everybody's working and that kind of thing that we can't do now.
Right. No, that's a good point. Monique?
I guess just to piggyback kind of on what Deb's saying, at the bottom where it was what else do you want the team to know, one of the first thoughts I had was this is a complicated process. The team has spent a lot of time on this. The pastoral staff is working hard. The other staff is working hard. Do we really need someone either going forward or throughout this process that is literally just I put it business/office/finance manager? Because this is a lot of stuff. There's legal financial issues, there's tax implications, there's just all of this. And is that something that we need to really consider having, whether that's a volunteer person that oversees or someone that we have help us through this financially and as a business manager?
Right. No, that's a good point. And I think just part of that and part of this whole process is it is a process. We know there's a transition. We know that ultimately there is a new entity that we legally have to make. And so there's going to be some of these decisions, like if we need to call one pastor or 4 pastors or whatever, just to keep them continual until we know what this settles down. I mean, I think these are great conversations and great ideas to put into play, because we don't know. I mean, I was thinking, hey, it's wonderful that Pastor Eric's church that sold in a week or less, but if there are buildings that are for sale that aren't selling right away and we're maintaining buildings, then of course we're going to have to keep custodial staff or hiring a company to maintain. So interesting conversations, and obviously that's also why we don't have all the decisions, but definitely good points. Any others? Otherwise, I think we have to get ready for the Holden. If not, thank you all for your input, and we'll collect the cards and definitely summarize. All of these are going to be summarized together. So all the weeks that we're doing this, next week, is all going to get put together, both a newsletter and other come together situations. So thank you very much.